As we gear up for Election Day, we know the road to the White House runs through Wisconsin. Tonight, we're hearing from voters in key communities across the state about the issues that matter most to you, showing why Wisconsin is a true swing state. Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Battleground Wisconsin, the Swing Vote. I'm Vanessa Kelson. Throughout the next half hour, we are talking with voters in every corner of the state, plus expert analysis from Washington, D.C. and the director of the Marquette Law School poll. Let's start in Sauk County, just outside of Madison. WMTV's Mark McPherson spent time there talking with voters to find out why Sauk fits the very definition of a swing county.
The swing.
The swing is a playground staple. For kids, it brings laughs and fun.
Jump it.
But in an election year, a swing can bring nerves and fear, especially in a swing county like Sauk County.
Well, it's very purple.
And that's the thing with a swing. Once it swings one way, it always swings back. And that's actually been Sauk County the last 16 years. They pick the eventual presidential winner, whether they're Republican or Democrat.
In 2008 and again in 2012, the county voted for Obama. But in 2016, they swung red and voted for Trump. Then 2020, they swung back blue and voted for Biden.
The way Sauk County went, so went the election.
Jerry Helmer is the chairman of the Sauk County Republicans. At the same time, he's running for assembly. He knows Sauk is not only a swing county, but it's had razor close finishes. And that means a lot of pressure.
It does make me nervous. It makes me feel very responsible being the chairman of Sauk County. It's a great responsibility that I need to get the grassroots to act upon what we need to do to make us win.
On the day we caught up with them, the party was holding a coffee and donuts conversation session.
We come on Thursdays, just have coffee, see how things are going.
Bud Ide is the quintessential swing voter. After supporting Obama, he's now supporting Trump and says he's not surprised the county swings back and forth.
Well, it's the diversity of people. We're on the edge of, a lot of people drive to Madison to work. And we're on the edge of the Driftless area, a lot of farmers.
We came to volunteer and help get out the vote.
The fact that Sauk swings is the reason Democratic volunteers like Nancy Harness and Lynn Boitano are even in the state.
And it's been wonderful.
The two are from the typically red state of Kansas, but thought their efforts would be better spent in a place that might help Kamala Harris win.
And I thought, I'm going to go to Wisconsin. It kind of all came together. That's what I'm going to do. Go to Sauk County and do something.
What's it like to get out the vote in such a purple part of the state? Well, to give you an idea, Lynn shared a story of knocking on a door one day and finding herself face to face with a staunch Trump supporter.
And we had the most delightful discussion. We really had a really good conversation, even though we had differences.
Maybe that's what makes Sauk such a swing area. So what might make the difference this election? What's the key issue in this key county? Both parties said the same thing, the economy.
People are struggling to buy groceries, to buy gas.
I think people are still wondering, why things are so expensive.
Time will tell whether Sauk swings red again or stays blue. But at least one swing voter we talked to made a prediction, whichever way the swing goes.
I predict it's going to be okay no matter what, because people are resilient. And I think we'll get on them. You have to.
New video at Memorial Union on the UW campus in Madison showing long voting lines. A poll worker told me the line was over 3 hours long to vote at that location. The student vote could swing things at campuses all across the state. In Madison, University of Wisconsin students are a key base for Democrats. Roughly half of the school's 50,000 students are from out of state and can vote in Wisconsin after living here for 28 days. The campus traditionally has high turnout. In 2020 alone, more than 70% of students voted. A live look now at the Wisconsin State Capitol. We are learning more than 1 million people in Wisconsin have already voted early so far, either in person or by mailing an absentee ballot. That number is from the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Early voting continues in some communities through Sunday. Be sure to check with your local clerk's office for the exact hours. Now let's take a trip to Sawyer County in the northwest part of the state. Voters here backed Barack Obama by a narrow margin, but then in the last two presidential elections selected Donald Trump. We hear now from KBJR's Dan Wolf, who found a common theme among the former president's supporters.
There's no better place to solve the world's problems than a bar. And according to almost every patron of the Moccasin in Hayward, America's biggest problem is immigration.
Build a wall.
Just the open border.
Unencumbered invasion from all quarters.
Michael Kozmak spent his career working in aerospace in Chicago before settling down in Hayward. When it comes to the election, his mind's made up.
Once I saw how Trump ran things, totally in. Huge fan.
Across the bar, Vietnam veteran Mark Preemsberger will also back Trump, mostly because of the former president's border policies.
Part of it was probably instilled in me when I was in the service that, hey, the U.S. is a place to earn your citizenship. You aren't given it. Let's earn it.
Down the street, a bit more progressive viewpoint from Margie Lease.
I do think a woman has the right with her own body, what to do with it if she becomes pregnant.
So you might be surprised to hear who she's voting for.
Trump.
And why Trump over Harris?
I just don't believe in anything that she stands for, except for the women's right. I don't think she's ready.
Just like almost everyone at the Moccasin, Lease lists immigration as her #1 issue.
Too many coming in that aren't accounted for.
But for the one staunch Democrat we found in the heart of Hayward, what's happening here is far more important than at the southern border.
People struggle in these rural areas, and it's been the Democratic Party that has really been the most help to us.
Rick St. Germain is a longtime Lakoutere tribal leader and teacher. He says Harris and Walz are the candidates who will help the people who need it most.
They're both products of middle class people. You know, they've had the experiences of people who've struggled in life and need that extra nudge.
St. Germain's disapproval of Trump might put him in the minority on this day in downtown Hayward, but everyone we spoke to agrees this election will be a pivotal one for rural Northland communities.
As for the last 3 presidential elections in Sawyer County, President Obama edged GOP nominee Mitt Romney by just 46 votes. And 4 years later, Trump beat Democrat Hillary Clinton by more than 1,600 votes. And in 2020, Trump had a similar margin over Joe Biden. Reporting from Northwest Wisconsin, I'm Dan Wolf.
In Wisconsin, we may have our very own crystal ball. Door County is the only county in a key swing state that has sided with the winning president, whether Democrat or Republican, every time since 1996. So why have registered voters aligned with the nation for the past 7 presidential elections? Well, WBAY's Brittany Schmidt went to Door County in search of that answer.
Colors, yellows and oranges, but it's not hard to spot the red and blue too.
And those aren't trees, right?
And sometimes it's right next door to each other, opposing political signs lined up along a property line.
They speak their mind. Whether you agree with them or not, they're going to tell you what they think.
Door County is the only county in a key swing state that has sided with the winning president, whether Democrat or Republican, since 1996.
It's kind of like, I don't want to say an anomaly, but I mean, it's not too many places that can do that.
So why have registered voters aligned with the nation for the past 7 presidential elections?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Both Democratic and Republican Party chairs believe it comes down to the diversity of the county.
We're a tourist area where we have a lot of small business owners, we have farmers, we have manufacturing, shipbuilding. It's just, there's like a wide variety of things going on here.
And then we have people that came up here to vacation, saw what a beautiful place it is, and decided, oh, you know what, maybe I'm going to move up here. And so we have people from all over the Midwest that have retired up in Door County, including myself.
Jill Kelly, a transplant from Chicago, believes it comes down to a community made up of people who are unafraid to support their candidates and talk about the issues like immigration, inflation, and reproductive rights.
And that diversity of opinion, I think, has really created a genuine discourse, you know, between people, that you land up in the right spot because people are talking to each other. And I think that's why maybe
part of the reason why Door County gets it right.
They're going to go red or they're going to go blue this time?
I think they're going to go red, and if you would have asked me that a month ago, I might have given you a different answer.
Why?
Because I think in the last couple of weeks, people are coming around. I think they're seeing the true colors of the people who are coming onto TV.
While campaign eyes may not be on Door County, as neither presidential candidate has made a pit stop here on the peninsula, it's a safe bet the eyes of the nation are.
It's interesting that the little guy sometimes can teach the big guy, so to speak, a lot about just living and being honest with one another and sharing each other's opinions and appreciating the differences that we have, you know.
And we can do that in a respectful way.
Absolutely. I think you see it here.
Reporting in Door County, I'm Brittany Schmidt.
Next on Battleground, Wisconsin, the swing vote, our White House correspondent explains why Wisconsin will play such a pivotal role this election. And learn more about the shifting votes in the suburbs of Milwaukee. We're going to the highly watched WOW counties, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington. That's next on Battleground, Wisconsin, the swing votes. Welcome back. New video of Vice President Kamala Harris campaigning in Janesville just a few hours ago. According to the Rock County Historical Society, the last time a Democratic presidential candidate visited Rock County was Barack Obama in 2008. Well, in less than half an hour, former President Trump will host a rally at Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee. This is video of him earlier today in Michigan. Joining me now is John Decker, our White House correspondent. Right now, both Trump and Harris are campaigning in Wisconsin, and we've seen back-to-back visits this election season. Why do they visit this state so much, and what's the intended impact?
Oh, it is so important to visit Wisconsin because it's a state that went for Donald Trump by a little over 20,000 votes in 2016. It went for Joe Biden 4 years later, back in 2020, by almost the same margin. And, you know, you've seen the polling. The polling indicates it's a toss-up as it relates to the 2024 election cycle. Even if you have the vice president ahead by a few points, typically the margin is within the margin of error. And when you're talking about 10 electoral votes in a very close election, this state, Wisconsin, matters a lot. And that's the reason for all of these visits by the vice president as well as the former president.
How has the national focus on Wisconsin shifted over time?
Oh, its focus has been on Wisconsin for the past few months. You know, I think even going beyond the Republican National Convention that happened in Milwaukee in mid-July, I think all along, both Democratic and Republican campaigns realized that in looking at the electoral map, this is going to be one of those pivotal states, part of that blue wall that Democrats have counted on election cycle after election cycle. It's no different this election cycle. It's still a part of the blue wall, and Democrats are looking to keep it in their column.
Speaking of that pivotal role, what role will Wisconsin play in deciding the presidency when it comes to election night?
Oh, it's so important. You know, when you think about that blue wall, there is one easy path, so to speak, for the vice president to win the White House this election cycle, and that is to win all of the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. She can still win the White House if she loses one of those blue wall states, but her path becomes a little trickier without having the 3 in her column. And so if she loses Wisconsin, she needs to make up for those 10 electoral college votes somewhere else. Similarly, Donald Trump would love to flip those blue wall states back into the red. He won all 3 blue wall states in 2016, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, by different margins. We mentioned the margin in Wisconsin. In Michigan, it was about 11,000 votes. And in Pennsylvania in 2016, Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton by a little over 40,000 votes. Things changed dramatically in some cases in the 2020 election cycle, where in the case of Michigan, Donald Trump lost the state of Michigan by about 154,000 votes, and he lost the state of Pennsylvania by a little over 80,000 votes. So it's going to be a close election. Once again, the polls bear that out, and it gives you a sense about how divided our country is right now in terms of support for both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
That was John Decker, our White House correspondent. Thank you so much for joining us, John.
Thank you.
John Decker was saying there are great political divides within this country, but also even in this state. Milwaukee and Madison are strong bases for Democrats in Wisconsin. Let's take a closer look at Milwaukee, where the majority of Black Wisconsinites live. Voters in Milwaukee's majority Black neighborhoods turned out for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012 with 70% and 77% turnout rates respectively. But in 2016, that turnout dropped to 61% and 58% in 2020, according to Marquette Law School data. Now the question remains, will Black voters turn out for Harris like they did for Obama? The founder of a Get Out the Vote effort in Milwaukee says it's hard to say.
I think it's hard to say. I will say anecdotally that people, once Kamala became the nominee, people started to say it felt like Obama. People felt like that history was going to continue to be made and that this was historic.
The WOW counties, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington, are the historically red suburbs around the city of Milwaukee and increasingly watched. Both former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris campaigned in Waukesha County this election season. And this W is widely cited as a county that could tip the election. So I went to Waukesha to learn more about how red the area really is. Waukesha, the third most populous county in the state, represents the core of Republicans hoping to hold on to voters and Democrats hoping to gain them.
I'm hopeful that my guy, Mr. Trump, will win.
Jeff Gauger has lived in this Waukesha neighborhood since 1981.
40, 50 years ago, or even 25 years ago, it was probably, I don't know the exact figures, but it was probably 70-30 Republican. Now it's probably something like 55-45.
Overall, the Republican stronghold is sliding in Waukesha County. In 2012, Republican Mitt Romney beat Democrat Barack Obama here by 84,000 votes. In 2016, Republican Donald Trump beat Democrat Hillary Clinton by 63,000 votes. And in 2020, Trump beat Joe Biden by 55,000 votes. How has the neighborhood changed over time?
It's gotten younger.
The executive director of the League of Women Voters, Deborah Cronmiller, attributes this to blue voters spilling out of the city of Milwaukee.
They're moving to the suburbs now because the affordable housing or access to work or getting out of a busy city.
Plus, Cronmiller says reproductive rights are driving women to the polls.
It made an impact in 22. I think it's going to have an impact again in this election in 24.
Abortion is the top issue for every Democrat we spoke with while in Waukesha.
The women's issue, that's foremost.
I just voted for Kamala because she definitely focuses on women's rights and I trust women.
I'm also like a Catholic, so like all life is valuable, but if it's going to put the woman in danger, I just don't believe that.
If my daughter said she has to have a baby terminated and they're saying no and the doctors can be prosecuted, that's wrong.
And even for some Republicans.
I can tell you what I don't want, which is a flip-flopping thing on the abortion thing every 4 years.
So will the GOP lose its grip on Waukesha?
I think they will lean red, but it's not the it's not as severe a lean as it had been.
The longtime Republican mayor of Waukesha, Sean Riley, now says he classifies himself as an independent. And just last week, Riley endorsed Vice President Harris. Some say this county is on its way to flip blue. Others say it won't change at all. Still ahead, we hear polls and numbers all the time. Next, an expert breaks it all down for us. Plus, we zero in on western and central Wisconsin to see their impact on the race. Thank you for watching Battleground Wisconsin, the swing vote, available wherever you stream. Charles Franklin, the director of the Marquette Law School poll, joins us now. This week you released the last poll before the election, showing Vice President Kamala Harris with 50% of likely voter support and former President Donald Trump with 49% of likely voter support. How confident are you in these results?
Plus or minus 4.4%, the margin of error. Look, we've done 7 polls this year. Not one of them has been outside the margin of error. So I think the result of such a close race, we're, that tiny 1-point lead for Harris, but really no one should be surprised if Donald Trump wins, and no one should be surprised if Kamala Harris wins. The surprise would be if one of them wins by 3 points or more.
Both Democrats and Republicans are emphasizing early voting this election. What is the impact going to be? Well, we've seen a lot of early voting. As you said earlier, over 1 million early votes. I'm not sure what today's count is, but it's well up there. That would be close to 1/3 of our 2020 turnout, and it may end up being more. I think it shows that people are still engaged, and we won't see a drop-off in turnout. We may exceed those record-breaking 2020 numbers. But we'll also see the early vote, the absentee by mail in our survey, is leaning very heavily Democratic, while the in-person absentee is leaning a little bit to Trump, and the Election Day voters lean by about 10 points to Trump. So as in 2020, we should expect to see the early returns that are Election Day mostly look pretty good for Republicans, and then as the absentees come in, that will eat into the Republican lead, but we won't know until 3 or 4 o'clock on Wednesday morning where the final tally lies. How much of a down ballot effect do you think there will be on the Senate race here between incumbent Tammy Baldwin and her Republican challenger Eric Hovde? We've seen both parties really unify behind their candidates in the Senate race as well as the presidential race for the most part. As a result, that Senate race is a 2-point Baldwin lead, just 1 point better than Harris's performance. Earlier in the year, we saw about 8% Trump and Baldwin voters. Now it's less than 3% that are crossing over that way. And that's just the sign that crossover voting is so small that the presidential and the Senate race track very closely together, unlike in years past where they might diverge quite a bit. You've covered a lot of presidential elections, done a lot of polling. Does anything in particular stick out to you about this 2024 presidential election? Well, the most striking thing is how unenthusiastic voters were in the spring, but with Republicans 10 or 15 points more enthusiastic than Democrats. When Biden dropped out, actually both parties became more enthusiastic, but Democratic enthusiasm caught up with and eventually is running a little ahead of Republican enthusiasm. That's the biggest dynamic all year long in a race where we've seen the lead be between 2 points one way and 2 points the other most of the year. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Charles. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, next on Battleground, Wisconsin, we'll round out our tour of the state and head to western and central Wisconsin, where voters weigh in on the issues important to them. Reminder for Election Day, the polls in Wisconsin are open at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Everyone in line by 8 still gets to vote. Your polling location may have changed because of redistricting, so be sure to visit myvote.wi.gov to check your polling location. As we near Election Day, voters and analysts alike are looking for any sign for what will happen on November 5th. In western Wisconsin, there's a few counties that could give insight on how the election will pan out. WEAU's Kim Liedholm explains.
Jackson County, like many counties in western Wisconsin, are full of colors of orange and yellow. But as we get closer to Election Day and voters cast their ballot, it's going to start to look a lot more purple. 6 western Wisconsin counties, Buffalo, Pepin, Dunn, Trempealeau, Sawyer, and Jackson, voted for a Democratic president in 2008 and 2012. Then in 2016 and 2020, those counties went red. The cause for the switch? WEAU's political analyst John Frank suggests voters in western Wisconsin have been frustrated in the national government, looking for a change.
People in western Wisconsin and west central Wisconsin are looking for something of a new direction, not just a different direction. They don't want to go back to something. They want to go forward with something that's new and different.
As for who strikes voters more as the candidate of change, I guess we'll have to find out on Election Day. Reporting in Black River Falls, Kim Liedholm, WEAU 13 News.
Finally, we head to north central Wisconsin. It's an area Trump largely won in both 2016 and 2020. WSAW's Emily Davies reports from Marathon and Portage counties.
This election, like every election in our lifetime, is the most important one in this country's history.
We really matter in this election, so don't talk down to us too much.
When outsiders characterize north central Wisconsin, it's often painted red. But many of the counties in the region gave the green light for Obama twice and picked up a majority of voters for Trump in 2016 and 2020. Wisconsin isn't won by counties or municipalities. It's each individual vote that brings us our state's winner. And even if you vote for red or blue or something else, every single voter has their nuanced reasons. That's why we're stepping into their shoes. We talked with people milling about downtown Wausau.
I live right up the street here.
Met up with voters at election events.
About politics, those are like my 2 favorite things.
And surveyed folks about what matters to them. While most didn't share who they would mark on the ballot, it was clear their shoes came in many shapes, sizes, and walks of life. And all but one are firm in their footing as to who has won their vote.
I haven't quite decided, but I have a good choice.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm going early.
There's a lot of policies, that have decided for me a long time ago.
Was it a hard decision to come to?
Not this time.
What kind of was your deciding factor?
I'm going to say more past record and not what's obvious.
Both these candidates have been in office for 4 years, and I think one of them did a better job.
While the important issues are different from voter to voter, there are some common themes.
Stuff that hits home every day of the week.
Our economy, boy, I just went to the grocery store. It's not good.
A lot of people are having trouble affording homes.
Healthcare.
Healthcare is a month-to-month situation.
Border. We're starting to see them come closer to central Wisconsin. I love working with them, great, hardworking people, but we still have to do it legally.
Abortion. I have great-grandchildren. How is this all going to affect them?
Discrimination.
Russia, Ukraine, and the Israel and Gaza and Hamas conflict, I think we do have a responsibility in them.
Even with this message to candidates,
behave themselves.
their message to fellow Wisconsin voters.
Every vote counts. It takes 100 pennies to make a dollar. And if you don't have that 1 penny, you're still at 99 cents.
Thank you so much.
Okay, have a good one.
You too. Reporting in Wausau, I'm Emily Davies.
Thank you for joining us for Battleground, Wisconsin, the swing vote. You can find this special and all of tonight's stories online on your station's website or wherever you stream. In Madison tonight, on behalf of WMTV, WEAU, WSAW, WBAY, and KBJR, I'm Vanessa Kelson. Thank you for watching.